On the tarmac of Bogota Airport, a family looks out of place. These are no ordinary people. It's the family of Pablo Escobar, the Colombian cocaine godfather and the most wanted criminal on earth. They had hoped to seek refuge in Frankfurt, but the German authorities immediately turned them back. The Escobar family comprises the son, Juan Pablo, in his arms his young sister Manuela. And bringing up the rear, Maria Victoria, Pablo Escobar's wife. They're tired and bewildered, and most of all, they're scared. Pablo Escobar has been on the run for 16 months and is no longer the all-powerful drugs lord who for years had terrorized Colombia. The public enemy #1 lives like a hunted animal. From his hiding place somewhere in Colombia, the drug dealer is powerless to help his family. Escobar always had an Achilles heel, his family. His daughter and his son meant everything to him. His Achilles heel is something the Colombian authorities are planning to take full advantage of. From the moment they check into a hotel, the family is under constant surveillance. They've become the bait. It's just a matter of time before the godfather makes the mistake of falling into the trap the police have set for him. Escobar slipped through our fingers too many times. It's unbelievable.
It was incredible.
Escobar used to bomb schools, supermarkets, anywhere. He knew all about the families of the police, he knew where their mothers, their fathers lived, and how many brothers they had. Medellin, 16 years later. Medellin, an infamous city in the heart of the Andean Cordillera, and less than an hour's flight from Bogota, the capital. Medellin is Colombia's second city, one of its busiest and richest, and the country's breadbasket. But it's also one of the most violent, with wanted posters littering the city's walls. "16 years later, and the city still has a bad reputation. The settling of scores continues, but these days it's between small-time drug dealers. And it's nowhere near like it was in Escobar's time. At the time, Medellin was a madhouse. There'd be bullets for breakfast and lunch, and bombs for dinner.
Hasta luego, que esté bien. Eso era bala al desayuno, al almuerzo y la comida.
Were people dying every day? Every morning there'd be bodies near the mountains. We'd call it Escobar's public cemetery. Each day there'd be corpses, people who'd been murdered, often just dumped on the open ground. Escobar started off by stealing tombstones, then he moved up to stealing cars, then he got into drug trafficking with a small-time local operator. Rumor is that he killed the guy to take over the business for himself.
Dicen porque no sé qué verdad sea, que él mismo lo mató y se quedó con todo el poder.
There are few people left in Medellin that knew Escobar well. You have to know where to look. So the task is to find them. According to some, one of Escobar's former lieutenants is still alive. Little video from those years still exists. His name is John Jairo Velasquez, alias Popeye. On police wanted posters back then, Popeye was not far behind his boss, Escobar, when it came to the pecking order. He was implicated in a number of murders. Sources claim that he's been serving time in prison for several years. What seems certain is that he was able to survive in Bogota's notorious Lo Modelo prison unharmed. Life in the old prison was a daily diet of insecurity and frequent violence, where the prisoners ruled the roost. Escobar's former right-hand man has since been spirited away to much safer surroundings. It takes a few more days to track Popeye down. No one apparently knows where he is, but persistence finally pays off. There is at last some news. Popeye is being held about 100 kilometers from Bogota in this modern detention center. It's a high-security prison with murderers, drug traffickers, and hired killers among its inmates. No TV crews had ever been allowed inside before. It was considered far too dangerous. But once again, persistence pays off, and an exception is made. A chance to talk one-on-one with Pablo Escobar's most loyal lieutenant. And he's the best person to give a first-hand account of his former boss's life on the run.
Y nos movimos en Medellin, que habían 1.500
At the time, back in Medellin, there were
ingleses,
1,500 people looking for us.
americanos, colombianos, estaba la DEA, estaba la CIA,
Israelis,
estaba
British, Americans,
la Infantería de
the
Marina
Colombian
Colombiana,
Secret
estaba
Service,
el
the
DAS,
CIA,
estaba
the
la
DEA.
Dijín,
Everyone
habían
was after
1.500
us.
policías del bloque de búsqueda, estaban los pepes, estaba todo el mundo detrás de nosotros y siempre los burlamos así.
Popeye never refused one of his boss's orders, however ruthless they may have been. He claims he was responsible for 250 of the estimated 10,000 murders ordered by Escobar.
Un día él me mandó a matar
Once
una
there
mujer
was
muy
a very
importante
high-profile
en
woman
Cartagena.
that we were ordered to
Nosotros la
kill in
ejecutamos
Cartagena,
adentro en el Hotel
and we shot her
Intercontinental y
in
saliendo
the
es muy difícil.
Intercontinental
Saliendo me
Hotel.
hirieron a mí.
But getting out of the hotel was tricky.
Él mandó sus
The
aviones,
police had sent a
helicópteros, cuadró a la
helicopter.
policía y me sacaron de
They
allá
opened
porque
fire
me
and I was
pegaron
hit
un
here
balazo
in the
aquí
artery.
en la arteria.
I managed to get home and
Y
Pablo
estaba yo en mi
Escobar
casa
himself
y
came
llegó
over to
Pablo
see me.
Escobar a visitarme.
That's when I
Ese día me
realized
di
he was a
cuenta que no
friend,
tenía un
and
patrón
not
sino
just
un
the
amigo.
boss. I had a friend,
El
not a
cartel de
boss.
Medellin era un
The
ejército
Medellin cartel
de
was an
borregos
army of
divididos por un
lambs
león.
led by a
Yo era un
lion.
borrego.
I was a lamb. The
Y él
boss
era
was
un
the
león.
lion. By the mid-1970s, Escobar was at the height of his powers. He was the leader of a group made up of his cousins and friends that ruled the drug trade. Alongside were 300 men, an army of hired killers, known locally as the sicarios, devoted body and soul to the cause. These men created the now infamous Medellin cartel. The cartel specialized in cocaine. Pablo Escobar revolutionized the way the drug was transported. Any means was good, by road, by air, or by sea. Hundreds of kilos of the drug were soon reaching the United States and Europe. At the time, it was fashionable, and demand rose dramatically, and the scourge of cocaine spread across the world. Escobar never seemed short on ideas. To ensure deliveries to his best clients in the US, he even had this submarine built. In 1980, Escobar reached his zenith, becoming the undisputed godfather of the world's cocaine trade, as ruthless as he was daring.
He had a war tax on the other traffickers in Colombia. He charged 50% of their cocaine loads. For example, if there was a trafficker moving 100 kilos of cocaine, Escobar would say, you know what, 50 kilos are going to be mine because I'm the one who's fighting Colombia. What happens if they didn't pay? He'd kill them.
In barely 10 years, Escobar had come a long way. From a small-time grave robber, he had become the all-powerful king of cocaine, a godfather whose net worth at the time was estimated at $5 billion. He felt he could do anything, and with all his drugs and money, he behaved as if he owned the entire country. And almost as if to prove he could do what he liked, he pushed the envelope to the limit by having his photo taken with his son outside the White House. He uses his profits from drugs to buy up real estate in Miami, Florida, under the noses of the American authorities. Escobar becomes America's worst nightmare. US federal justice authorities demand his immediate extradition.
He formed a group called los extraditables, which
their motto is a better coffin in Colombia than a prison cell in the United States.
When he declared war on Colombia because of the extradition, we never expected the size of that war.
Escobar reveals his true personality, a psychopath who orders the murders of everyone who might be involved in processing his extradition. Judges, journalists, politicians, police, anyone. During this period of terror, an estimated 10,000 fall victim to Escobar's killing spree.
Or sometimes we would go out on site after a bomb would blow up, and you're seeing body parts. You're seeing small children, infants, that have been killed simply because their parents were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Such incidents spurred the Colombian authorities to act, and they decide to eliminate the Godfather. A price is put on his head, and he becomes public enemy number one. Pablo Escobar, alias the Doctor, vanishes from sight. A French TV crew that had been working on another story comes across Escobar in the bush. The subsequent interview is a major scoop, and the first time a European media has ever filmed the drug trafficker. In front of the camera, Escobar goes to some lengths to justify himself. We have to realize that we're living through the cocaine period. Cocaine is invading the world. Why? Because it's a drug that's less strong, less damaging than the others. There are drug addicts because of a lack of education and discipline. It's the same with alcohol. There's no difference between someone sleeping on the sidewalk because of drink or because of drugs. The Godfather goes on to pick apart the American arguments against the cocaine trade. Right now, it's cocaine that's considered dangerous, evil, because the Americans can't control it, because it's the Colombians that produce it. That's the real problem. In that same year, the Medellin cartel ships out 300 kilograms a day of cocaine to the United States. US officials have had enough and again demand the extradition of the drugs lord. Hunted in his own country and wanted by US justice, there appears no way out for Escobar. Undeterred, he tries to bargain for his freedom with the Colombian government. It's an unlikely barter. In 1991, an assorted convoy of vehicles is heading into the mountains near Medellin to a place known as the cathedral. Inside the vehicles, his gunmen flank the Godfather. Escobar has agreed to surrender and serve time, but in a prison that he himself has built to his own specifications. Escobar is dictating the terms, and his purpose-built jail conspicuously has neither prison bars nor keys. On the radio, Escobar explains that he has surrendered for the sake of the Colombian people. At this historic moment, when our fighters are giving themselves up to bring calm to the country, I cannot ignore the calls for peace by the vast majority of the Colombian people. Pablo Escobar Gaviria, Envigado, June 1991. The Cathedral is a 5-star luxury prison with all the comforts of home. And even better than most homes at the time. There's a state-of-the-art kitchen, music centers, telephones. Outside, there's a huge telescope, which allows the Godfather to keep track of police as they come and go, as well as keep watch over his family, who have remained in the valley below. During the day, Pablo and his associates have no time to get bored. The cocaine empire continues to grow.
La cárcel La Catedral era
The prison at Cathedral was crime central. It was where they controlled the drug traffic, and the government was fully aware of the fact. At night, the Cathedral becomes little more than a brothel.
The
boss had as many women as he wanted. He and one other guy were the only two people in Colombia at the time with private jets. He used to go scouting for girls in Brazil or Argentina.
Él tenía 50 niñas muy bonitas, modelos.
One day, he had arranged for 50 girls, all of them really beautiful, like models, to attend one of his private parties. One of them turned out to be a police informer. And when he found out, he had all the girls murdered.
¿Y qué hizo? Las descuartizaba. Entonces aquí
By the end of the week, bits of bodies, heads, feet were found all over Medellin.
la cabeza en un lado, pierna en otro lado, descuartizó
It was
los
awful,
cuerpos.
but when he felt threatened,
Eso era terrible.
or thought someone
Entonces,
posed
cuando
a
él
threat,
amenazaba
it meant
o
certain
cuando
death.
él veía que alguien lo estaba delatando, era muerte segura.
When what was going on leaks out, it causes a huge scandal, with the president of Colombia himself forced to explain.
It was not a joke. What happened is such capacity of intimidation that we end up discovering that most of these soldiers were bribed by Escobar.
The government insists he served time in a real prison. Sensing a trap, he refuses. One night, Escobar, his friend Popeye, and a dozen henchmen escape. Pablo and I escaped through the fence. There were no police, no one. We must have left at about 11 at night. It was very foggy outside. We reached a farm that belonged to a friend of the boss the next morning. To be on the safe side, we didn't let his friend's kids go to school, and then we just waited. When their escape is discovered, a state of alert is declared. After a year in his private prison, Pablo Escobar has once again gone underground. The police realize they need to act quickly, as the Godfather is on familiar territory, and every hour lost gives him the opportunity to disappear for good. Nothing is left to chance. Each house in Medellin and its suburbs is searched, starting with those belonging to his lieutenants. But by the morning of the 22nd of July, 1992, the authorities admit they've lost him. Escobar has apparently vanished into thin air. Bogotá, the government is exasperated. Barely 24 hours after his escape, it sets up the Bloqueo de Búsqueda, an elite unit whose sole task is to track down Escobar. Its headquarters are in the city center. The 1,000-strong unit is made up of highly trained and hand-picked policemen and soldiers. The commanders make sure that none of the men are from Medellin, and that all of them have a score to settle with Escobar, choosing those who have lost at least one member of their families to the gangsters' hitmen. The head of the unit is Colonel Hugo Martinez, as methodical as he is incorruptible. His number two is Major Hugo Aguilar. His role is to gather intelligence. He's as tough as nails and thoroughly determined. The Americans send two of their best drug officers to work alongside the Colombians on the ground.
So it was the best of the best in going after him. We had all the resources we wanted. Our resources, I'm talking about the money, the equipment, the intelligence. DEA at this time had created a TKO program, which is that we were targeting Escobar all over the world.
Medellin becomes a city under siege. The special unit is everywhere, with carte blanche to do as it pleases, sweeping everywhere and searching everyone. To begin with, the dragnet turns up little more than weapons, telephones, explosives, common enough in Medellin, and the usual suspects, most of them petty criminals. What the investigators are hoping for is the one clue, the one informant who might lead them to Escobar.
Se busca a Pablo Escobar Gaviria. Recompensa 2.700 millones de pesos. Por Johnny Rivera 100 millones de pesos. Y por Blanche Muñoz 100 millones de pesos.
The rewards and the televised appeals for information make little headway, however, as whoever might be tempted to inform on the Godfather or his cronies knows fully well it would mean the death sentence. As a result, months go by, and Escobar remains as elusive as ever. Despite the grind and the danger, the search unit has to follow up every lead. Often the unit's intelligence takes them to Envigado, the suburb where Escobar grew up.
And people were hiding him. You know, remember, Pablo Escobar was a Robin Hood to the people in Medellin because he helped a lot of poor. He built churches, gave a lot of money to people, so people idolized him. You know, they were guarding him, they were hiding him.
Here in this house, the police were hoping to round up a few members of the cartel. Unfortunately for the police, they arrived too late, and it wouldn't be the last time. Elite forces, well-paid informants, yet there was still no breakthrough. To catch Escobar, there's a change of tactics, with priority now being given to telecommunications. The Americans provide an AWACS surveillance aircraft and a twin-engine plane to track vocal frequencies. It's the first time such methods are used to hunt down one man. It means that Colonel Martinez and his men can eavesdrop on hundreds of telephone and radio conversations day and night, 24/7. Then in March 1993, we suddenly realized we have Escobar talking to his son. But the problem was that he was constantly on the move. But the twin-engine plane that is constantly in the air over Medellin manages to locate the frequency used in the phone call. The plane was able to identify where the call had been made from on the ground. So I immediately traced the location on the map of the city to find the exact spot. The calculations show that it came from a house in one of Medellin's smartest suburbs. Escobar has to be there, and it's just a matter of rounding him up. The orders are to move in at dawn, and the house is thoroughly searched. Inside, there's a vulgar display of wealth and a few staff that are half asleep. Who does this house belong to? Adrian Moreno? Moreno is a name Escobar often uses. What's he do for a living? I have no idea. I'd be lying if I told you I did. I have no idea. What bad taste these traffickers have. Upstairs, there are a few more surprises. There's little that's subtle, typical of all the Medellin Godfathers' residences. The officers take their time scouring through the huge property. There is, however, no trace of the drugs lord. The bed is unmade, the bedclothes still warm. Escobar, it seems, was tipped off just in time. It's the same old story. The only people are the staff. It's like that in all of his houses. Pablo Escobar has now been on the run from his comfortable imprisonment for 8 months. He's thumbing his nose at the special unit.
We missed him at the beginning. I venture to say we missed him a good 20 times. We would pick him up on the radio. We'd have the search blocks around the area, and we'd always miss him.
As time goes by, Pablo Escobar's popularity seems to increase. Evading the authorities by luck or design makes him into a hero. In the rundown neighborhoods, the poor are all on his side. If Pablo were here, he wouldn't even need to ask. I'd help him. He's welcome here anytime. In our home, he's welcome with open arms. He'll always be welcome. Escobar also finds easy refuge with his cronies from the cartel and other traffickers on whose loyalty he can rely. Now, more than a decade and a half later, most are no longer alive. All that are left are some members of the Escobar family, who alone know how the Godfather managed to remain at liberty for so long. Maybe they might finally talk. According to some reports, his son, Juan Pablo, and his widow, Maria Victoria, have sought refuge in Argentina. His brother, Roberto, and his younger sister, Alba Marina, are still in Medellin. The Escobar family had been untouchable for so long. The brother and sister used to go out quite openly. These days, they choose to keep a much lower profile. A local journalist helps out by providing the address of Escobar's sister. Is this where Mrs. Escobar lives? Yes? Is she in? No, sorry, she's just gone out. Okay, we'll leave a message for her. The crew kicks its heels in a hotel for 3 days, waiting for some response or acknowledgement to the request to meet up. Caution and distrust runs deep in the Escobar clan. But on the 4th day, there's a phone call. Alba Marina finally agrees to get together at her house. It's now known that Alba Marina had been Escobar's co-conspirator during the time he had been hunted, or as she puts it, persecuted. They shared many secrets, and to this day, she still has the greatest admiration for her brother. This is my favorite photograph of Pablo. He was involved in politics at the time. He looks so happy. Almost nobody knows that I've kept all these souvenirs. These all belonged to Pablo at one time. I picked them up from his various hiding places. These are his track shoes. And these are the slippers that he used to use indoors. And this shirt is well known. It was in all the papers. This is his last diary with his appointment and a card.
Este mapa lo encontré yo
It has the
en
address
una de
of
las
one of the places
caletas.
where I used to
Él
go
tiene
and see
esta
him.
agenda en donde
He
tiene
wrote the
todos los
names of
datos de
enemies
los
in here
enemigos,
too,
en donde,
their addresses,
en donde se
their
están,
phone
en qué
numbers,
carros se están
and the names of
movilizando,
their
los nombres de
fathers
las
and their
amantes, el
mothers.
nombre de la mamá, del papá. Esa era la barba
And
postiza
this
que
is
él
the beard
usaba.
that he used to wear as a disguise.
Me parezco.
I look like him, don't I? Pablo Escobar also had a brother, Roberto, who was 2 years older. Video of him from this time is rare, but Roberto Escobar was a key member of the Medellin cartel. He would also play an important role in his brother's flight from justice. His speciality was accounting. In his memoirs, Roberto Escobar claims to have been among the 15 people who helped organize the finances of the cocaine empire. Before taking her leave, Alba Marina had claimed her brother can be reached through a contact in the United States.
Quisiéramos entrevistar
Hello,
a
we'd like to
don
speak
Roberto
with
Escobar.
Roberto Escobar. Oh, to interview Don Roberto or to talk about Pablo, you would need to speak with, I mean, you'd also need to pay some money. I don't know how much, though.
Ah, pues ustedes me dicen.
Eventually, a deal is reached with the person we actually want to interview. The woman agrees to provide his phone number.
Aló.
Hello.
Sí,
Don Roberto?
Buenas tardes, don Roberto.
¿Quién habla? Who's calling?
Periodista que viene de
I'm a
Francia.
French
¿Cómo
journalist.
está?
How are you? Fine.
Don
How about
Roberto,
yourself?
¿será que podemos pasar a
Can we
hablar
meet
con
at your
usted
office
ahí
or
en su
somewhere that's
oficina
convenient?
o algo?
Yeah, no
Más o
problem.
menos a qué hora nos podemos
Can you
ver.
tell me where we can actually meet then? Go to the Las Palmas service station.
Muchísimas gracias,
I'll have
don
someone
Roberto,
meet
que
you
esté
there.
muy bien. Hasta
Thank you
luego.
very much, Don Roberto. The meeting is due to take place in a residential district in central Medellin. The only condition is no cameras. We nonetheless decide to film the meeting anyway.
Buenas tardes.
As a young man, Roberto Escobar was a professional cyclist before changing gears and following his brother. On his walls, black and white photos provide a record of those days. Don Roberto has no wish to dwell on the days when he was part of the cartel and dealt in cocaine, although he has agreed to an exclusive deal with Hollywood producers to sell his life story. The story of Pablo's time on the run is something I'm familiar with. In fact, I probably know more about it than most. Beginning in 1983, I spent most of my time with Pablo. We were the best of friends, two brothers that were inseparable. We did everything together, including during the time when he was in hiding. The remaining 50 minutes of the interview proved to be less fruitful. He does agree to tell us, though, that while Pablo was on the run, he was always able to stay in touch. From his prison cell, Roberto used a phone that he hid in his TV set to communicate with his brother. I had made a phone in my TV set. I rigged it up and turned it into a telephone. Visitors would only see a TV, but it allowed me to talk with my brother anytime. I'd change my voice and ask him, "Hello, brother. How are you doing? What are you up to? Everything all right then?" June 1993 marked 1 year since Escobar had escaped from the cathedral. The special unit has no idea where he is, and he moves around the city under the very noses of the police. The government decides to tighten the screws.
Solicitado por la justicia.
It triples the reward, and Escobar, dead or alive, is now worth $5 million.
Absoluta reserva.
Por sus hijos. Por usted. Coopere. Denuncie. Informe.
The authorities refine and perfect their electronic surveillance. Escobar is one of the first to own a cell phone, but he knows he has to keep on the move and keep his conversations short to prevent the police from pinpointing his position.
El técnico
de comunicaciones que iba en el avión
One day,
norteamericano.
an American technician who was up in the airplane tells us he's got a precise position.
Porque estaba contento porque había
He's
logrado una
located the
ubicación
exact hiding
excelente.
place.
Y ubicó
Precisely.
exactamente el punto de donde estaba Escobar escondido. Muy difícil el terreno,
It's in mountainous,
aislado,
difficult terrain.
montañoso. Esta operación
We organized a helicopter operation in the
para
utmost
evitar
secrecy.
que se supiera la información. Sin
Just a
embargo,
short while later, we hear someone
se oyó-
warning him on the
se oyó
radio
el
saying,
aviso que le daban a Escobar.
"They know where you
Lo
are, sir.
tienen ubicado,
They're
señor.
on their way."
Y con eso fue
So by
suficiente.
the time we
Él
arrived,
se fue.
he'd gone. It's obvious there's a mole in the unit, a traitor who keeps the head of the cartel informed the instant the police are about to swoop. The colonel quickly ferrets him out.
Se trataba de un auxiliar de policía. Este muchacho era
The informer was a young
muy
police
hábil en
auxiliary
obras
who was
de
known
madera,
as a skilled
manuales,
woodcarver.
artesanal. Hacía policías,
Sculpted out little
y hacía
figures of
helicópteros, y
policemen,
hacía aviones.
helicopters.
Y se la pasaba
They'd hang
sentado
around with
ahí,
us all the
muy
time at the
cerca
police
a
station.
nosotros, donde operábamos, en nuestros lugares de operación.
The informant was in Escobar's pay, using the money to rent an apartment in this building just behind the barracks.
El policía, el teniente salía y le hacía una seña al auxiliar de policía y él corría
As soon
rápido y
as this
venía acá
policeman
y le
knew an
informaba
operation was
que
being
iba a haber el
organized, he
operativo
used to run home.
y utilizando unas
And
claves
using a radio code,
llamaba
he'd call
a los
Pablo
escoltas
Escobar's
del
lieutenants.
narcoterrorista Pablo Escobar,
They'd talk
le habla el
in code
CDD,
and say things like,
dígale al
"Tell
señor o al
sir
doctor, como
or
le
the
decían a
doctor,"
Pablo,
as they
le
used to
van
call
a caer
Pablo,
o van a
that they're
operar.
on their way,
Inmediatamente pues él lo
making
veía.
straight
Cuando
for you.
nosotros salíamos de aquí los vehículos y llegábamos al sitio,
So when
ya
we
no
were heading up
encontrábamos nada, o
towards the
encontrábamos
target,
un grupo que nos
we'd
enfrentaba
sometimes
mientras
see
él lograba
people
escapar.
heading
Entonces,
past
ese fue
or
tanto el
going the
daño que
other
hizo,
way.
además de la cantidad de policías asesinados.
The traitor is eliminated and the manhunt can resume unimpeded. Our target is a guy called El Chopo. According to our information, he's hiding in this area.
Chopo was the terrorist, hands-on terrorist guy who placed all the bombs.
This is our photo album with our various operations and suspects. This is the guy we want to catch tonight. There's a complete change of tactics. The idea is to isolate Escobar by rounding up his key men, one by one. Mario Castano, alias El Chopo, is tonight's target. The operation against El Chopo is a success, and many others follow. The senior members of the cartel are eliminated one after the other. Pablo Escobar is severely weakened.
So towards the end, Escobar was running without strong leaders, terrorist bodyguards.
Fear begins to creep in, and the predator becomes the prey. And a new enemy begins to emerge, the so-called group of the persecuted, also known in Medellin as the pepe.
Los Pepes era una
The
agrupación
Pepes were
de
criminals
criminales
who had
de
once
la,
been
hacían parte
in the
del mismo
Medellin
cartel de
cartel,
Medellin que
but
se
left for one reason or another, and they began to
distanciaron de
challenge
Escobar,
and then fight
del
Escobar.
jefe del cartel, y lucharon contra él.
Their bosses are two former accomplices of Escobar, who'd had enough of his paranoia and cruelty. Unlike the police, the Pepes knew all the secrets and habits of the leader of the cartel. The bloodletting soon starts as the Pepes gun down anyone that's close to the Godfather.
So this changed the dynamics of Escobar. Escobar now started worrying about his own family.
The Pepes used the same tactics used by Escobar by targeting the families. Case in point, as the apartment owned by his mother is blown up. At the time, Escobar's wife and children had been inside. Nobody is hurt, but the attack is a warning.
En una ocasión,
One day they set off a bomb and ruined a painting by Dali, which was estimated to be worth $5 million. Escobar's wife was devastated, and she calls Pablo. Look, she says, they've destroyed the Dali. What are we going to do about it? Pablo tells her that the only Dali that is worth anything to him are his children. So don't worry about it. Gradually, Escobar begins to fear for the lives of his loved ones. It will be the reason of his downfall. As long as his son and daughter are in Colombia, he cannot relax. He decides to send them to Germany, in Europe. On the 27th of November, Maria Victoria, Juan Pablo, and little Manuela board a flight for Frankfurt under police escort and filmed by the TV crews. Escobar breathes a sigh of relief. Although he doesn't know it yet, the countdown to his own end has already begun.
Su esposa y sus dos hijos
his wife and kids leave for a safe country. But there's no country that wants them. The plane goes backwards and forwards and eventually returns to Colombia. No one wanted anything more to do with Pablo Escobar. Under diplomatic pressure, the German government sent the Escobar family back home. On the 29th, the Escobars are back in Colombia under police protection. They have no idea they have walked straight into the trap set by US and Colombian authorities. I was certain that once they'd been expelled from Germany and were back in Colombia, they'd begin pressuring Escobar in a big way. When they land, the Escobar family is whisked away to a police safe house in Bogota. They have become prisoners. They are soon at the mercy of the media. The children are portrayed much in the same manner as animals in a zoo. For Escobar, alone, far from his family and unable to protect them, it's a terrible ordeal. At the same time, the Pepes step up the pressure and attack the hotel with grenades, although again, no one is injured. In his lair, Escobar, hysterical with worry, forgets even the most basic security.
Juan Pablo and Pablo were talking every day at 6 o'clock in the afternoon on that same frequency, and that's how we started intercepting his communications again.
For the Special Investigation Unit, it's the turning point in the battle. Every man is mobilized, and every means deployed. In front, 4 vocal reconnaissance vehicles. They cruise the streets of Medellin in an effort to locate the Godfather as soon as he opens his mouth. We were listening in 24 hours a day by that time in the search zone. Our units were on full alert, ready to intervene whenever a call was intercepted. On the 1st of December, police technicians identified 5 phone calls made by Escobar from different locations in the city center. He was always on the move, calling from a car that was constantly traveling. The police finally figure out one of Escobar's tricks. To avoid being tracked down, the fugitive had for months been using a simple but effective ruse, that of using one of the city's numerous cabs that would drive around non-stop while he made brief calls from his cell phone. After 4 days spent listening in, we were very tired. We thought we'd never be able to track him down. But then suddenly, on day 5, we intercept his latest phone call. And an amazing thing happens. It's a signal from a fixed line, so we know he's phoning from a house. The first police on site confirm the information and brief their superior officer at once. So he tells me, that's it, I'm at the house. I'm right in front of it. I think I can see him inside. He's near the window with a telephone in his hand. It's a confirmed sighting, and the unit advances, led by Major Aguilar.
Nosotros entramos con mucho
We were
cuidado.
cautious
Lo
when we got to
primero
the
que
house.
observamos
The
aquí
first
en
thing we
esto,
saw
ahí
was
estaba
the
el
taxi
taxi
which
que les
he
había
used to
comentado
take.
que en anterior comunicación lo habíamos visto. Y escuchaba que Pablo
And then I heard Pablo
estaba
talking on
hablando
the
por
phone.
teléfono en el
He was
segundo
up on
piso.
the second floor.
Empezamos a avanzar,
So we
a
went
subir
up.
la escalera.
I had my
Yo
rifle
iba
that was in
adelante,
front.
con un fusil
We were
en una
moving
forma
slowly.
muy sigilosa,
And in absolute silence.
despacio. Aquí yo ya lo
Then
veo,
I see him.
que estaba
He's
sentado
right
allá,
in front of me.
pero yo no tenía
But I didn't
una
have a
buena
clear
línea
shot.
de fuego, no le podía disparar. Entonces yo
So I
avanzo
crept
más y
forward
él
and
voltea, me
then
ve,
he turns around
dice,
and
aquí
sees
está
me,
sucediendo
and he
algo,
says, "What's happening?"
y tira, después lo llamo y tira
Then
el
he drops the
teléfono
phone,
y
pulls out
saca la
his revolver
pistola
and
y me
opens fire.
dispara. Y él corre.
I run upstairs,
En ese
clutching my
momento yo ya
pistol.
tenía la pistola en
I
la
shoot
mano
him and
y le
hit him
disparé.
in his shoulder.
Cuando él hace esto, le pego el tiro en la espalda. Y él tenía
The policeman behind me takes his
policía
rifle and
por
opens
encima de la
fire.
cabeza mía con el fusil le disparó y le pegó el tiro a
Shoots him here,
eso fue
right in
casi
the
al
temple.
mismo tiempo.
The
El
bullet
tiro
goes in
acá
here
y le salió por
and
acá.
exits there.
Y él se lanza.
And he suddenly throws himself through the window.
Yo salto acá,
I jumped
me
out
pego
too,
duro,
which was
porque
difficult.
esto siempre es
because
alto.
back then the windows were
Además
much
estaba
higher.
más alto. Avanzo,
I move
aquí ya
forward,
más o menos él
I
está
take the gun away from him,
mirando hacia allá, yo le retiro
then I take the
la
radio and
pistola.
call my bosses and shout,
Cojo el radio, grito, viva
"Long live
Colombia,
Colombia!
ha muerto Pablo Escobar,
Pablo is dead."
comunicándole al jefe mío.
Within 30 minutes, all 1,000 men of the special unit have arrived on the scene. The whole city appears to congregate at the house, and at the news of Pablo Escobar's death, some applaud. Others are in tears. Some don't believe the news. The Godfather's mother, for one, who arrives visibly shocked. It would take her a long time to accept the truth. His face hidden, the American agent Stephen Murphy makes his way through the crowds of soldiers. He wasn't about to let the culmination of 16 months' work go by unrecognized.
Everybody's very happy. Everybody's very exhausted. You just can't imagine the pressure that we felt had been lifted off our shoulders, much less how the Colombian National Police must have felt.
1:30 p.m. on the 2nd of December 1993 marks the end of the largest manhunt in history. Pablo Escobar is buried the next morning just outside Medellin. 10,000 people show up for the funeral. For many, Escobar had been an idol. Off to one corner, the female members of the family are almost crushed as the crowd tries to touch the coffin one last time. Years after the death of the most wanted man on the planet, one mystery remains unresolved. What happened to the Medellin Godfather's vast fortune? Where did he hide the $5 billion that legend has it he was worth? I think his family has most of the money, because none of Pablo Escobar's money was ever found in Colombia. If he really had all those millions, and even if he probably didn't know how much exactly, even if it was just worth half, his wife and children would have to be multimillionaires today in Argentina. We wanted to check General Mazza's comments. Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. After his death, Escobar's widow, Maria Victoria, and her 2 children settled here in some comfort. They changed identities and blended into the background. Maria Victoria changed her name to Maria Isabel. Juan Pablo is better known today as Sebastian Marroquin. It took us more than a week to track them down. The Escobar family now dabbles in real estate, and Maria Victoria has set up an interior decorating company along with her son in the heart of Palermo, a trendy part of the city. We're outside and decide to make some phone calls.
Hola, buenos días. ¿Me puede comunicar con el ingeniero Marroquín, por favor?
Could I speak with Sebastian Marroquin, please? He's not in.
¿Usted sabe cuándo vuelve?
Do you know when he might be back?
¿De casualidad él está en Buenos Aires?
Is he in town? I think he's on a trip. I don't know where exactly. He's gone abroad.
Vale,
Okay, well, thanks very much. Forced to wait, it seems a good time to find out more about the activities of the Escobar family in Argentina. We spoke to a journalist who has been reporting on the family since they first arrived.
Ella cuando entra al país empieza a vincular con gente de aquí de Argentina y en particular con un contador, Zacarías. Ahí empieza una inesperada relación, primero de noviazgo, después termina siendo amantes formales, tanto que ella termina comprando un departamento como nidito de amor.
The apartment becomes the center of Maria Victoria and her lover's money laundering operations.
Él viaja a Colombia y empieza a traer dinero en valijas con doble fondo, lo que en realidad era mucha plata, traía $400.000 entre el 95 y 1999, apenas 5 años. Ella había ingresado $2 millones, pero por supuesto que la estimación era que había sido mucho más de esa plata. Se hablaba de $10 millones.
But Maria Victoria's love is soon betrayed. The accountant is really only interested in the money. He becomes greedy and effectively blackmails Mrs. Escobar for no less than 5 years. In 1999, there's a dramatic development as the entire Escobar family is arrested. Maria Victoria, her son, Juan Pablo, as well as the blackmailer. They are released almost immediately. The judges were never able to prove their wealth came from the drugs trade. Since then, the accountant has mysteriously disappeared, and Maria Victoria has never been seen in public. The next move is to head towards Escobar's office building. The days tick by without news. By day 4, we're in our car, acting on a tip from Juan Pablo, who's just arrived back in Buenos Aires and would like to meet up. There's no mistaking who his father was. They look so similar in profile. The Godfather's son is now 32 and has wiped the past from his slate. These days, he's a successful designer in Argentina, married, and soon to be a father. We head to our meeting with the son of the Godfather, equipped with a hidden camera. The man who's tried to rebuild his life is notoriously shy of the media, so our meeting is significant. How should I call you, Sebastian or Juan Pablo?
Sebastian.
Sebastian. Juan Pablo to me is ancient history. That was my life before. Now, your father built up a considerable fortune. What happened to his money? Were you able to use any of it? The answer is simple. The war cost a huge deal of money. My father was immensely wealthy, but he stopped dealing in drugs and invested all of his money into that war. The weapons and the manpower cost enormous amounts of money. And beyond the cost of the weapons and explosives, a considerable amount of money was used to corrupt people. So he bought the whole country off?
Yep, the whole country, all of it. I remember very well being in my father's office once. I saw an endless stream of important people. For example, he was inside meeting with an official, and outside the policemen escorting him were keeping guard. After their boss had finished, they went in to be paid. That's the way it always was. One day policemen, another day politicians. One day I even saw a former president of the republic. He would pay off everybody. Dad would say, "Here's your check, thanks very much." Argentine justice eventually threw out the case. But as the only son of Pablo Escobar, there are many who have doubts over where his money came from. You know, we've been accused of laundering maybe, what was the figure? About $1 million over a period of 5 years. All I can say is if it's true, then we must be the worst money launderers in history, since if you try and launder money that comes from the cocaine trade, $1 million is nothing, just pocket money for a cup of coffee. So what did happen to Escobar's billions? Are they in numbered accounts or buried underground somewhere? Or are they just a legend? Nobody knows, apart maybe from this woman, Maria Victoria, the Medellin godfather's widow. She refused to talk with us, and the only images we have are these few seconds in a street in Buenos Aires. She has the key to some of the secrets. When he died on that Medellin rooftop in 1993, Pablo Escobar, the greatest drug trafficker of all time, took some of his secrets to his grave.